For more on this, I want to bring in Marshall Billingslea. He is a former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury and was the lead negotiator on Russian arms control under President Trump. He is also Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. Marshall, welcome. Thanks very much for being with us. A lot to cover tonight. On Wednesday, first of all, President Biden sanctioned the company in charge of building Russia's Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, which would increase gas flow from Russia to Germany. That's in addition to new sanctions on Russia's two largest banks. Break this down for us, if you will, Marshall. What do these sanctions ultimately mean, and who will be directly affected?
Well, Elaine, it's great to be with you this evening. And you're exactly right. Today, the president did announce sanctions or remove the waivers that he had previously given on the Nord Stream 2 project. As a practical matter, that really isn't going to have much of an effect because yesterday, the Germans pulled all of the certifications necessary for the operation of the pipeline. And of course, the pipeline isn't flowing gas just yet. The sanctions imposed so far in response to the buildup, both inside and on the borders of Ukraine, have been largely token measures at this stage. The administration is threatening an escalation in a tit-for-tat manner with the Russians. But they've not yet really taken the hard-hitting measures that would be necessary to deter Putin, as it seems he's on the brink of invasion.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I think when Americans hear sanctions, it can be unclear and a bit amorphous as to what exactly the targets are. So you, it sounds, don't necessarily believe that these particular sanctions are going to have any significant impact on President Putin's ambitions when it comes to Ukraine.
Unfortunately, no. It seems pretty clear that based on what the administration is saying, that further invasion of Ukraine is imminent and could even happen as early as in the early morning hours here tomorrow. So clearly, if deterrence was the goal, it doesn't seem to have worked. I think the president probably should have been more aggressive and really mounted a much more fulsome set of measures and really telegraphed the kind of additional steps he was prepared to take. I think that's also important for U.S. companies and businesses to understand what's on the table and where we're headed.
Can you elaborate on that? Because, again, I think for a lot of Americans out there, you hear sanctions, it's just not clear what exactly that means. When you say hit harder with these sanctions, what is it specifically that you're talking about? And remind us, if you will, Marshall, what sanctions were already in place against Russia?
Great point, Elaine. Russia actually today is under a raft of sanctions that stem from everything from their invasion of Crimea in 2014, where sanctions were taken not only on some of the officials who participated in approving that assault, but some of the companies that were doing business there in Crimea, as well as, for instance, Igor Sechin, who was the chairman of Rosneft, the energy company, as well at the time. There are also sanctions related to Vladimir Putin's repeated efforts to chemically assassinate dissidents and defectors that were taken under the Trump administration. There are sanctions on oligarchs, these high net worth individuals who have looted the Russian economy under Vladimir Putin's protection and who provide blood money to him to support his efforts. And then there are sanctions on everything such as export controls, which are really not sanctions but have the same effect, as well as limitations on Russia's ability to raise debt through the sale of bonds, sovereign debt for the Russian government. So it's a wide range of available types of measures. And President Biden has a lot of options at his disposal. He's just not yet using them.
So Republican Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted Tuesday that President Biden is, quote, not seizing the moment by issuing tougher sanctions on Russia. Several other Republican lawmakers also made similar comments. So let's dive in here. What specifically are those other things that President Biden could, in fact, enact sanctions on?
You know, Elaine, it's not just Senator Graham. Senator Menendez, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, has recently been fairly critical as well. So there is a bit of bipartisan concern that the administration has not stepped up to really deter what's about to happen. You know, as Lenin said, you probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. If you encounter steel, you withdraw. I think, unfortunately, based on the U.S. response and even the tepid response out of the United Kingdom, Vladimir Putin has decided he's encountering mush. What could potentially disrupt and deter an invasion in the next day or two would be sweeping sectoral sanctions on the Russian finance sector, potentially even including sanctions on the Russian central bank, which is something in the Trump administration that we imposed to devastating effect on both the Iranian and the Venezuelan economies. So we know that works. The good thing about sanctions are that they can be withdrawn. You can remove them as rapidly as you can implement them. And if Putin is told, look, we'll pull these financial sanctions off of your economy as the ruble takes a nosedive as a result, if you withdraw the troops back to their garrisons. That's the kind of messaging we would really want to see out of our president, but we haven't seen it yet.
All right, Marshall Billingslea. Marshall, thanks very much for sharing your insight with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Elaine.